they're done. Yay! Well, I shouldn't say they're done. That one's been done, but this is done now. So hooray! As you can see, it turned out wonderful, very beautiful. I'm happy with it. Let's hear what it sounds like. So this is just a Stratocaster that I built, so it's got some custom pickups in it, so it's not even worth mentioning. So, obviously, you can tell, it does the clean thing. This is about where I like it. Basically, you got a low cut, volume, master volume, and high cut. The low cut and the high cut do exactly what you think they do. The volume and the master volume do exactly what they say they do. You can kind of use the volume and the master volume to play around with the brightness of the amp, if you will. So, this is more like a Voxy kind of thing. Might not sound that much different to you on that end, but it's a little bit brighter. There you have it. So yeah, it does the Voxy kind of thing, and then of course, let's shoot for like edge of breakup, which should be right in there somewhere. A little bit louder, of course. Go a little bit more. Obviously with hotter pickups, it'll break up a little bit sooner, but no, the other amp on the right is not on. It's just there for looks. I don't have a dimmer on the plate either, so it's full brightness. That's what this one would look like if it were on full brightness. A little too much. We're gonna get dimmers for all of them from now on. Alright, so you've heard what it sounds like clean, you've heard what it sounds like kind of on the edge of breakup. Let's add some dirt to it. So, oops, sorry about that. This is an Unobtainium Raw. It's one of the new ones, and this is on the Steel String Singer channel. No, I'm not going to play anything realistic or real. I'm going to keep it stupid. I'm going to keep it simple. Copyright being a thing, I don't even play that game, so we're playing crap today. Sorry. Anyway, this is the Klon channel stacked on top of that. Neck action. So effects wise, I have a Strymon Blue Sky for the reverb. I've got a MXR Echoplex for a little bit of that delay action. And then, of course, you've already heard of the unobtainium. I have a Gristle King and the Dude in there. So right now we have the Klon side and the SSS side of the... God, that sounds so horrible to say. Whatever. Anyway, let's add the Gristle King on top of all of that, and we really gonna get to the Gristle King. Get that. So let's go a different direction. We'll turn all that off, and let's just turn on. This is just the Dude now, by itself. So. So just a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner of the two, if you will. And then, of course, we can throw an EP booster. Let's do all the others with an EP booster. So this is the unobtainium with both channels on, and the Gristle King and an EP booster. Get a little over the top. Okay, let's go the other direction now. So I'm gonna turn off all the effects, so there's no effects on right now. And let's go ahead and we're just gonna gain it all the way up. So this is nothing but phase inverter distortion at the moment. The master volume is down. So this is the natural breakup of the amp at more or less bedroom volumes. Now I know most people would say, oh, that's my clean. Well, just kick on the raw or the unobtainium and it gets you in the mean. Apologize. I am pretty sloppy today. I'm keeping it loose. I am keeping it real. It's also freaking like 100 degrees out in the garage right now, and my palms are a little bit sweaty. The neck is a little bit sticky, and I don't believe in using that fast fret stuff, so you know. Yeah, it's sloppy. My apologies. As you can tell, I'm kind of on the country thing lately. I don't know what it is. Whatever. Anyway, you can hear it. It goes much, much meaner than that if, of course, you can dime it. Obviously, you need something like a Torpedo Captor X or some sort of load box. The gentleman who has bought this amp does use a load box, and because he uses a load box, he shoots more for power amp distortion, which can happen in this amp. If you more or less dime the master volume, by about the time you get to noon o'clock on the volume knob, you are getting into power amp distortion only. That is to say that the phase inverter is not yet distorting, so the only distortion that you do get is the output section. So this amp really does great with the clean to mean thing, and we'll hear that in another snippet here in a bit. But this is more or less where I like it, right where it's set currently. Now, let's kind of get an idea of what it can do on either side of that, I should say. So, obviously you can go full bright, full lows, and you can get, your nice big, shimmering, clean thing. So there's that, and then of course it can do the jazzier thing if you want to do jazzy, so it gets darker. I don't do jazz, sorry. So, there, yeah, it does that. Now, obviously, if you want it to get a little more wiry, you can obviously turn down the lows, and that'll get it a little bit brighter. So I tried to make it so that this amp didn't get too bright or too thin or whatever, or too ballsy, so it really works pretty well right up the middle. Obviously the highs you got to play around with a little bit more to the extremes if you want the extremes, but for the most part you stick them in the middle and you're good to go. So that's it really. I don't know what else to say. Let's put the guitar down. And let's turn this thing off. And let's take a look at the backside. Because, we love looking at backside. I don't know about you. At least I know I do. Sorry, ladies. Alright, so. Beautiful chunk of walnut there. Obviously with my logo inscribed within it. Not much to the backside of this thing. I could not find a knob that was exactly the same as the front ones that would fit in the space I had available in the back. The client specifically wanted those knobs on the front that we got. The ones that kind of look like knobs to like an old stove or something like that. So this is the closest thing I could find that would still fit in this space. And it looks kind of like a cupcake with a pointer on it, and it's just a little bit bigger, but works really well. You can also see that I put my IEC connection in there. I like the True 1 connector, which most all my other amps have that in there. The True 1 connector is a superior power connector, but it is not typical for most people to have something like that sitting around. So if you lose that connector, you're kind of SOL, So an IAC is probably what I'll end up putting on all of my production amps. The True 1 connector will be on request, if you will. This is the actual fourth amp made of this particular amp here. The first one obviously is the prototype, and then I have 2 and 3, which are kind of more or less my loaners at the moment, but those are actually both spoken for. So those will get built into a box eventually and sent out to their respective owners. I'm just under no pressure to get those done. So yeah. Other features of this thing, if you probably can't already tell, there is a mirror in the back. No, you cannot see my face, but you can see the mirror. That is a thing that I do. My other amp over there does the same thing. Maybe you've seen the other videos of it, or maybe you haven't. I don't know. That is a me thing, though. I kind of like doing that, and I like having the nameplate kind of lit up a little bit. This particular client didn't really care for the mirror. He doesn't really like the mirror that much, but I told him it's a me thing, so you're going to get it whether you want it or not, and he didn't argue too much. As for the faceplate, though, he doesn't really care for it to be too bright, so this one does have a remote control that you can dim it up or dim it down, however you want to use it. So there it is. This for this client. This is called the Purple Hazel, the EC18. This is not actually the name of the amp, but for right now, for him, that is what it is. But thank you so much. We're gonna hear some more of this thing. We're just gonna put it into a what do you call it? A torpedo Captor X, so you can hear what this thing sounds like when it's dimed. I guess, you know, it won't take me that long to do it. Let's just do it right now. Hold on. And let's get the power. And do-do-do, 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 boop. There you go. Obviously we can't hear anything, so we're gonna come back in a few and we'll actually hear what this thing sounds like. I don't have any of the recording equipment set up for this yet, so we'll do that in just a minute, but stick with me. Hold on. Alright, hold on a second here. Alright, we're all set up now. There we go. Yay. Alright, so let's hear what this thing sounds like, you know, dimed. Or more or less dimed. So the effects that you're hearing are coming from the Captor X, of course, up here. It's not, I'm running through the board, but obviously you can't run the effects that I have the way through the board. So let's just dime it. This is what it sounds like when it's dimed. You know, fun stuff, right? So hold on, let me get my ears in so you can actually hear this thing. Obviously, I would never in a million years expect it to be ran like this for any length of time. Now, my client does run it with a, he has a Palmer DI, and it takes the actual speaker, it has like a load in it, or at least a DI segment for it. So he runs the amp into the Palmer, and then he strips a clean signal off of the amp, well, a signal from the amp, and he splits it in two directions. One goes into an air brake, which he uses for the dry signal. So this has he has a wet, dry, wet rig, and so then he strips the other side of the signal off and goes through his effects board, which he has all the fun stuff on. He usually runs it right in kind of this ballpark here. Master volume not quite all the way, and the volume up to taste. He likes it a little bit darker, but obviously this isn't the exact same setup, so yeah. He also then runs it through a Gristle King, and this is what it sounds like with the Gristle King. Same, it's indicative of what he's kind of got going on, so, you know, whatever. But sounds like this. Obviously, it doesn't sound exactly like that because he's not using a Captor X. And then this is, of course, what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like with that setting on the amp. So it does the clean to me, and that's more or less all I'm getting at. So I hope this kind of makes sense for you. I don't know. It gives you an idea of what this thing can do. The Captor X, the speaker is a 410 like G12. It's one of the stock cabinets in the device. It sounds pretty good to me. I don't know how good it actually sounds in the real world. I've never actually used it other than for doing this kind of stuff here like this. So I don't know. It does a thing though. It's a really cool amp, very versatile. It does a lot considering it's only one channel and, you know, only 4 knobs. And 2 of the knobs are really, well, there's only 3 knobs that really do a thing. So, you know, whatever. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll do another little segment here where we'll just kind of do like some B-rolls and just some voiceover kind of crap, but we'll see you in a few. And there it is, in all of its glory. It is finally done. It is so nice for it to be done finally. It turned out so wonderful. Such a beautiful amp. So these are removable. They're held in by magnets. I don't know if you've seen it in the other episodes. They're kind of a bitch to take out in this state here. It's really best if you just take the amp out. These aren't really meant to be like fully serviceable necessarily. I guess objectively speaking, they're removable to the degree where if you had to get them off, you could, but they're not really meant to come off. I don't know, whatever. So yeah, came out really nice. Quite happy with things. Let's get down in there. Let's get down in there. I went with an heirloom fit. I like an heirloom finish on these things. Like these things obviously are meant to come out, so I can't really make them have like a fine seam fit. So, you know. And then of course the mirror is just a really cool touch, I think. I really think it does set the amp off in a way. Like, it's just cool to look in there and kind of be able to see, like, everything. But that is a me thing. I know not other people would agree with that. But, and it's just wonderful chunk of wood. I got lucky on this one. So, yeah, there she is. I don't know that I like that seam that I put down in there. You can kind of see, you know, it's just a little uneven. Yeah, I guess it just depends. I don't know. We'll see. It's nice because it does make it so that this Tolex won't get caught when you're lifting the amp out of there, but, you know, whatever. It is a thing. Live and learn. We can always change that. Subject to change. 2 amps Lobo. Obviously, 120 volt, yada, yada, yada. 4816. This is that knob I was talking about here. It just couldn't quite get it to be exactly the same as the ones on the front, but speaker out. These are in parallel. Yada, yada, yada. The 4th amp. May the 4th be with you. So, yeah. I am super duper happy. It sounds great. I think it's one of my better sounding amps in this series. So you can kind of see here what I was talking about with these knobs. They kind of look like the ones for your like oven or stove or something like that. He wanted something with a pointer, and I told him, well, pick out what you want. And these are the ones that he wanted. And I was like, okay, that's a bummer because those won't fit on the back. And he's like, I don't care. So super duper happy with that. And of course the leather corners, these came out great. Let's go back to one of my biggest fails on this thing. I am not afraid to show my fails. I'm not happy with them. I'm sorry, I'm moving things around. But you can see here, you can see the seam, damn it. I just can't get it to go away. I think that's where these blisters came from. It's from trying to pull these things together. But you really can't see it from the front side, obviously, because this thing covers the entirety of the seam, and then it goes there. Same on the back. So this is the only part where there's a seam. This will never split. I can tell you that right now. It's never going to go any further than that. It's just a bummer because I've definitely got some work to do in the Tolex department. I've got some learning to do. So we're going to get there little by little. I do not claim to be an absolute pro in all of this stuff. So I do make mistakes, and obviously some things like that, there's just, you know, once you get to that point in the amp, you're so far along, there is no takesies, backsies anymore. The rest of the amp came out phenomenal though, so I will take it with that. I am super duper stoked. Yeah, super duper stoked. I'm sorry, I freaking had my hand over the microphone half the time, so it probably sounds like dookie, but whatever. It is what it is. You got to hear the sound sample. I don't know how to tell you. Like, obviously, what you hear out of the iPhone microphone and whatnot doesn't give this thing much justice, but I think it sounds phenomenal. My client thinks this thing sounds phenomenal. Almost saw my face. Oh, you're not gonna get to though. Anyway, you can kind of see I ended up having to go with the brushed aluminum look on the top, which is kind of a bummer. I kind of prefer let's see if I have one here. So I kind of like the raw aluminum look if I can get away with it. It's just, it looks cleaner, it looks nicer, but unfortunately there was a nick in the amp in roughly the same spot, it seems. I don't know. There was a nick in the amp and I had to fix it, and then over in this section here there was another scratch. Not on this chassis, but there was a scratch on that chassis that needed to get fixed. This amp here, you guys never really got to see. I started making a video on it, but I never really went anywhere with it. This is definitely a prototype. I can tell you right now, there's not another amp out there quite like this one. It's kind of a cross between a Trainwreck, a Vox AC30, and a matchless DC30, I guess, if you will. Kind of all rolled into one. It's got an EF86 input. That's the only channel there is. It's not a DC30. It doesn't have the two channels, but it has an EF86 that goes straight into the phase inverter. And then, of course, it's got the 30-watt section, and it is tube rectified with a GZ34, and then the output transformer is more akin to something like what Trainwreck would use. Trainwreck would use. Now, that's just to say this is not a Trainwreck transformer, but it is in that realm of impedance, I guess, if you will, or primary impedance. Now, why did I choose to go with a 6K primary transformer as opposed to the 3.8 or 4 that Vox would have used for this same style of amp? The reason being is there is something, and we'll talk more about it, but there is something to the primary impedance of a output transformer that does affect the sound of the amp, for better or for worse. It is not an exact science, but it is a science. So you can go off a little bit. And as I mentioned before, I like designing my amps to run at 8 ohms. And the reason I like running them at 8 ohms is because I like to be able to use the impedance selector to kind of vary how the amp will react. So with this particular amp, if you have an 8 ohm speaker and then you plug that, or you switch that over to, say, the 16 ohm, it would be essentially like you were running a 3 ohm to 4 ohm output transformer. So it'd be kind of similar to that of a Vox AC30. Conversely, you can go the other way and really kind of go the extreme, and it won't hurt the amp, but it'll change the sound. It changes how the amp sounds and how it reacts and all that stuff. You can kind of see my pedal board. We're doing some work on it. We've got a lot of work to do. I haven't decided if I'm going to stick that in that spot or not. So if I do, I need to change cables around. But as you can see, that's what we were working with earlier. And these are the speakers that you were hearing the amp through earlier as well. This one's loaded with some G12Ms, and then this one's loaded with the G12T75s or whatever the T Series 75 crap is. I actually really like this cab, and I like those speakers. To me, they sound very linear, I guess is the term for it. They don't really have too much of a spike or a dip or this, that, or the other. They're pretty linear, at least in this cabinet here. So I know that if it sounds pretty reasonable through this cab, it's going to sound pretty good through any other cab that I play it through, and it seems to be true. But anyway, getting back to the transformers. So yeah, that's kind of the idea behind it. I like tube rectification. That is kind of a me thing. There's nothing superior or inferior about it. It is just a thing. The reason I like it is because it's like a slow startup. As you probably know, I don't like using standby switches, so it's a great way to have kind of a slow start system in an amp that, kind of doesn't care either way, but it's just kind of a cool, to me, it does the thing, right? So this one is also, I used a power transformer that brought the voltages down a little bit on the output tubes. I don't really care to run power tubes, at 11. So whereas Vox might be, sitting at around 350 volts on the plates of these, and maybe some matchlesses are a little bit higher, I'm running closer to 325 volts on the plates of these, and I think that is a much more sane number, especially for a 30 watt amp. This thing puts out, I think right around, when I measured it was like 32 watts, like cranked. I mean, that's everything just dimed, of course, but obviously clean power wouldn't be quite that much. So whatever, it still gets pretty damn loud. Louder than I need it to be, that's for damn sure. I think 30 watts or right around 30 watts is kind of the magic number for amplifiers. Once you get above 30 watts, you're really just you're just making more noise to make more noise. You're not really changing too much on the way the distortion sounds or anything like that. The volume change is so minute by that point in time that you're really just going for a difference in feel and a difference in, overall sound, I suppose. But Rhett Scholl did a video recently where he took a 50 watt and 100 watt, like Plexi amp or something like that. And he said, essentially they're the same, but they're, a little bit of difference in feel, a little bit of difference in the overall sound, perhaps. And obviously the 100 watt was just a little bit louder. Well, a little bit louder doesn't make or break a gig. So, I guess to me that means that the 50 watt really just gets you the 9/10 of the way there, and that last tenth really doesn't matter anymore. But if you have to have it, it is there for you to get. I feel like 30 watts is kind of that point, though. Once you get above that, I don't think you really notice it too much. So, or the difference becomes, smaller and smaller. You start stealing away some of those tenths, I guess. Yeah, whatever. I'm talking bullshit, but so yeah, this guy is very similar to all my other amps in that it's got a low cut. This one's a little bit different. Right now it's wired up with a high cut over here, but it's actually just a tone control, if you will. So it's got a low tone and a high tone control, and then a volume and a master volume. The play mute switch, I just put it in there because I felt like people would probably like it, but it turns out that most of the people that use these, to have my amps don't really use that. So I'm probably just not going to use that anymore. It's kind of a pain in the butt to put in the amps. Don't really need it. So I don't like using standbys. Amps like these don't need standbys because it's got a tube rectifier and, yada, yada, yada. So this amp sounds bitchin'. We're going to come up to this one. We'll do something more on this one in a bit. And then, of course, we've got one of my finished amps here. This is my one of the amps I was commissioned to build for a, what would you call it? A fundraiser. It was a fundraiser. But my friend ended up winning the bid on this. It did not go for quite as high as I'd hoped. That's unfortunate because this thing is very beautiful. I did not know of the maker of these corners at the time. So the other amp, this guy here, obviously you can see the corners match the handle. These ones here came from antique electronics supply or whatever, and I do not like these. I did not know that they were going to be literally like this maroon. On the camera it looks, you know, brown, I guess, but in real life they almost look like purpley, or wine, almost like a dark wine colored. But obviously it does not match the handle at all, and I was very disappointed. But by the time I got these, it was too late. I had to put them on, and yeah, but this amp came out gorgeous. I was very, very smitten with this thing. This one's a 5-watt single-ended amp. Many of my the people that have used it are dubbing it the sweet little sister. It just has a very nice, sweet sound to it. Very beautiful, very soft, and you know, it's a 5-watt amp, so it's like a little sister, I guess, if you will, to all the big amps. You know, so they call it the sweet little sister. Everyone I've shown this thing to, with the way it's currently set up, have been blown away by it. Definitely loud enough to gig with. Maybe not if you're playing in a rock and roll band with a drummer that plays with baseball bats, but you know, gets loud enough, that's for damn sure. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I hope that I inspired you to do this. You can do this kind of stuff. You can buy these already pre-made if you want and stuff your shell in there or your amp in there. Go out and do it. Just build an amp. Just do it.